And it gives me great pleasure to welcome Joyce to our group today. Joyce is from the, I'm just going to move my thing over, is from the Regional Coordinator for the Citizens Climate Lobby, Australia. Now, some of you may know that I'm also an En-ROADS Climate Ambassador, and Joyce got in contact with me with that hat on, and from our conversation I thought, oh Joyce, there's so much that our group would like to learn from you. And so we met up on Zoom a few days ago, and I said, oh Joyce, we've got a meeting coming up. Do you think you could spend a few minutes and just explain to us more about the Citizens Climate Lobby Australia and what you do? And I had not heard of the organisation before, and when I went and Googled you on the websites and saw what you did, I thought, oh, we can learn so much from your approach of advocating for climate with all politicians from all parties. So I'd like to hand the floor over to you, Joyce, so as you can share more about what the Citizens Climate Lobby of Australia does. I've set up the screen so as you can just go into your own share screen and it should show up. So if you want to do a PowerPoint.
Thank you very much, Carol. I must say how much I did enjoy our conversation the other day. It was really, as you said, we had a lot of things in common, and I know our organisation is very small and that people haven't heard of us, but I guess that's why I jumped at the chance when you invited me to come here, because we do want to spread the word about what we do. There was so much in your talk there, Amanda, that resonated with me as coming from Citizens Climate Lobby as well, and so much to unpack. But I am going to use slides because I'd like to show people some other faces from our organisation as well, and to show there's a picture of something that I really need to share as well to explain what we do. But to start, yeah, we share a lot of goals and values, it seems. So that's pretty cool. It's all about empowering others and helping each other to kind of have a meaningful impact in the things that we do. So that's a starting point. And give you an overview of what I'll cover today. I'll do a bit of a background on CCL, as we call it, Citizens Climate Lobby, and a bit about what we do here in WA, what activities we involve ourselves with, and then our platform. So the main thing that we talk about when we go and have meetings with, for example, MPs. And then last of all, the next steps, if anyone was interested in kind of like jumping on board and helping out occasionally. So, but my path here was because I've always been interested in the environment, and I've been a member of Australian Conservation Foundation for about 35 years, and kind of all through those years kind of kept hearing about the environment and gradually a bit more and more about climate. Once my kids grew up and I had more time to read and research, I kind of got to the point where I thought, gee, something's going awry here, and we, all of us need to kind of step up if we can. And I had time, so I've kind of joined a few groups, but then Citizens Climate Lobby, and I kind of was really thrown in the deep end because no sooner had I joined, but they had a conference in Canberra, and so I flew to Canberra, never been there before in my life, and learned a lot about CCL in the first couple of days there, but in the subsequent 2 days we were just in Parliament House having meeting after meeting after meeting with MPs. And so talk about jumping in the deep end, it was quite a fast learning curve, but thoroughly enjoyable and empowering, and it kind of got me hooked. So that's how come I'm here. So if I can share screen now, can you see this?
Yep, it's coming through. Yep, we're there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. And so yeah, the mission or vision is to create the political will for a livable world. Now, it's a huge, big statement, as these things often are, but that's where we start from. But the guy who started it was an American called Howard Marshall, and he was working to alleviate poverty in third world countries. And he ended up watching An Inconvenient Truth, which many of you may have heard of and probably seen, but it really kind of spurred him into action because he realised that what he was doing, helping people in these places, was really going to count for naught if they were going to get washed away by floods or they were going to be experiencing extended periods of droughts and food security was going to become a problem. So he returned to the US to start this thing which became Citizens Climate Lobby, and it was about empowering and encouraging people to form groups in their local areas to go and speak to their elected representative and let them know about their concerns. So that's kind of where it started from. And then a guy from Perth, Rod Mitchell, I'll not go past that one. Rod Mitchell from Guildford here in Perth came across CCL and he brought the idea to Australia. He really liked the respect, the values, and the idea that it's all based around building relationships, ongoing relationships, and that appealed to him. So he brought it here to Australia. So CCL is big on personal power. Finding common ground with people, often on an opposing side of an argument. So that's a little bit about asking questions, which you mentioned, Amanda, about asking questions to find out where people are. Questions are such a really handy tool. So finding common ground, and again, as mentioned, that mission about political will for a livable world. And the way that we do it is, as I said, kind of getting people together in their local groups to go and talk to their elected representatives. It's about breaking down barriers with them, highlighting shared values about place, which is really crucial. But if you come on a meeting with an MP or another business or community leader, there's just one maxim that we have, and that is that you must find something positive about the person that you're going to meet. That's the only thing, because we find that if you go in with that mindset, with that kind of positive mindset, that the meeting is often more productive. But I should have kind of mentioned about those values that you can see there on the page. When we're strictly non-partisan, that's a very important part of us. Focus on this policy, which I'll explain to you, about reducing emissions, relationships we've already touched on, optimism. Rod here is just the embodiment of optimism, and integrity. We always are able to back up our arguments with sound evidence. I've already mentioned personal power and diversity. We welcome anyone to come along and join us. So just as an example of the kinds of things that we do, here are just some photographs of some meetings that we've held over the last couple of years. We've got a couple more meetings coming up in the next month or so, and we're always looking for more people to join us on these meetings from a variety of stances. So this is the top four there are all with federal MPs, and we do concentrate on federal MPs, and the bottom two photos are with state, at the state level here in Perth. It's lovely to see. In the top left, we can see, you know, what was really exciting for us was this time last year when we had the election, and we saw how many women came through into our parliament, really on the basis, on their platforms of climate and integrity. And Tanya Lawrence there at the top left was one of them, but Kate Cheney in the middle left there, very strong on climate and integrity issues. So we've had a couple of meetings with them, which was really lovely. We've met Patrick Gorman, top right, Perth electorate. Ken Wyatt, we saw several times, middle right there. He's gone now, but was a very interesting man to talk to. And the bottom two, as I say, are state MPs here. But that's the kind of thing we organise a group of like from 3 up to about 8 or 9 people, and just talk about our policy. So getting to that, it's really about trying to, like, decarbonisation is really key to what has to happen. But how best to talk about that? That's the hard part. We want to support renewable energy. We want to preserve forests. We want to maintain biodiversity, electrification of things, circular economy, all those things we want much more of. It's like everything, everywhere, all at once, like that new title, that new movie title. But the heart of the issue is reducing emissions. I mean, that's the crux of the problem. And this has to be done in a way that positively affects lives of everyday people, or else it won't succeed. That's why we advocate for a policy which does both of these things. It reduces emissions and it helps people to be a part of the decarbonisation process. And a good analogy is seatbelts. Left to individuals, there would have been some success and some lives saved, but it was the legislation that was brought in that managed to have the most effect around saving lives on our roads. So this is I guess what we like to do is go and talk to MPs about our concerns. We offer a solution, and this is our solution, and then we share this experience so that we kind of try and mainstream. At the same time, we try and mainstream the idea of going to speak to our MPs, because they are, at the end of the day, they are our lawmakers. So this is a graphic which kind of explains the policy in a very simple way. And I'm very happy to take questions on this because there's a lot behind this. So at the end, if you've got questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. But basically, in a nutshell, you can see on the left, we've got the carbon pollution. Now, we know if we measure that at the mine or the well or the port, so where it first enters our economy, we know the carbon content at that point. So we can measure it and we can put a fee on that. So it's putting a fee on pollution at source. Then the government collects that fee, doesn't keep any of it. It distributes it straight back to every household in Australia. So they are just an instrument for collecting this fee, and then it becomes a dividend. That's why we've called it the Australian Climate Dividend. It becomes a dividend for householders. And then householders are able to use that to help offset any rises in costs in things, in high carbon intensive products. So petrol, power, etc. So in that way, it incentivises two things. It incentivises the fossil fuel companies to produce less carbon, and it incentivises householders to purchase greener, cleaner products. So that, in a nutshell, is the platform that we advocate on. So, you know, in summary, this is just a screenshot from our website. These are the attributes of this policy. We talk about its efficiency. Economists tell us that a price on carbon is the cheapest way to get the emissions reduction that we need. We can regulate and we can put it all on individuals to reduce their own carbon footprints, and we can leave it to the market. We can do all those things, but the most impactful thing we can do is put this price on carbon at source. It's popular because of the dividend component. It doesn't increase taxes because the government takes it straight back to the people. It's fair. It targets, or can be structured to target, low socioeconomic and middle socioeconomic groupings. So because they are the ones, as prices rise, they're the ones that spend a higher proportion of their income on things like petrol and power. So they are adversely or negatively affected by something like this, but the dividend cushions them against that and compensates them for that. So it's quite targeted in that way. And the choice thing, I mean, it just gives everybody the choice to decide for themselves at their household level how best to use the dividend that they would get whether it's annual or every 3 months, however that was decided. So this is the economics term for this model is a carbon fee and dividend. You can see it in the top right green square there. Every economist knows about this, and every economist that we've come across says that this is by far and away the best way to deal with the problems we have with carbon emissions. It's fair and it's simple and it's effective. Now, if you want to know more about it, you can talk to me and all the people here who at Citizens Climate Lobby who might be able to answer your questions. You can go to our website, ccl.org.au. We've just become a bit more of a think tank, and we've just kind of put all the information we've gathered over the last 7 or 8 years since Rod brought this here to Australia and put it into what we've called playbooks. So that's on our website. There's a policy playbook where you can find out more about this policy, and there's a lobbying playbook where it's quite helpful to kind of show ways to lobby effectively. So that, in a nutshell, is what we do. I don't know if any of you are at all interested. just go online, have a look, talk to me or talk to any others in your state that already do this. We love to have more people involved, as I said. If you join, get our newsletter, read our blogs, etc., and just get involved at that political level. I hate to call it political level because I'm not a political person at all. I mean, the first time I was ever in a politician's office, I was in my late 50s. It just was not on my radar at all. But now I quite, given these skills that I've learned over the last 5 years or so, it's not as daunting as it once was. So that in a nutshell is it. If anyone's got any questions, I'm happy to answer them now if we have time. Otherwise, at a later time, whenever you think it's right, Carol. Thank you.
No, that's brilliant. You make it very human, and I love the whole approach of it. It's very personable and it's very equitable. How you sort of come together to have the conversations with politicians. And I just love the idea of you only go into the meeting if you can think about something positive of the other person. I think that's a great maxim to have. Were there any questions from people for Joyce? Sandra, you're on mute, Sandra. Just warn you. There we go.
Oh, thanks, Joyce. That was wonderful. I'm just wondering, what's been the response of the politicians that you've been talking to? Do you feel like sometimes they're hollow responses?
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. I mean, it's a very hard thing to talk about at that political level because it's become such a hot potato in the last 20 years. I mean, at the beginning of this century, it wasn't. There was bipartisan support for doing something substantive to do with climate, but over the, I guess, the last 10 years or so, it's become very difficult. So what's the response? I mean, they agree that from an economic standpoint, it's a good policy, and from a social justice viewpoint, it's a good policy, but it uses a lot of political capital for them. So they have to really, really it will take a lot more of a groundswell, and that's what we try to do. I guess that's what our role is, to try and improve and grow that groundswell of people who are going to their politicians and saying, look, if you get brave enough to tackle something as difficult as this, we'll back you. And in fact, after one Canberra conference, one of the comments from one of the MPs was, keep going, we need you, kind of saying, yeah, we get it and we understand, but until more people get behind this, it's just really hard.
Yeah, I find that difficult. I think politicians have forgotten they're our servants.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be representing their electorates, but they don't bother to come and ask. Their party says do this, and then they fall. I don't know what's happened. So yeah, we do need the groundswell. I agree with you. Yeah.
And isn't that the beauty of all these independents coming through, because they are not beholden to a party line. So when we go and talk to politicians, they are very cautious about what they say, and they might kind of let slip sometimes that yeah, they get this, but they must stay within that party box. And that's the beauty of having a higher percentage of independents there now, because they will act upon what their constituents say. So people like Kate Cheney here in Perth doing a fantastic job of listening to the community, having lots of forums, having lots of experts. Like she had Ross Garnaut come in and speak recently. He's a real, you probably know Ross Garnaut, talks about the superpower that we could be. So collecting all this, and I think the more women we can get in, the more climate advocates we can get in, but that won't happen until once they get there, we have to kind of show that we get this, and that if they speak up, then we will back them.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
That's good. I do find that politicians are very cautious, and they tend to reflect messages that they get from people that they talk to. So we need to have more people talking to them to make them braver.
We've got those scales, don't we, so that it's more in our favour. Yeah. Exactly.
Yes. Tyrrell, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I do. With regard to the efficiency section, Joyce, and the fact about, you said there, put a price on carbon is cheap. And it's hard to corrupt. It seems to me that we've been talking about pricing carbon now for years. I agree with you, it's not politically expedient, but I perceive that that is possibly one of the biggest sticking points so far. And until we can actually get that pushed through, that this is not only economically viable, good heavens, you know, everybody who turns their brain on can see that, but being able to get through to the politicians, we have to make sure that it doesn't happen, because the big businesses involved obviously don't want to lose that profit margin that they've got. And we keep being told that if we do that, then they're going to put their investments overseas. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that. And I think that your group is absolutely amazing. I'm also president of the University of the Third Age here down in Bunbury. And we do have people within our group who are very, very worried about what's happening for their children and their grandchildren and the future. But that the need for it to be political but seen as non-partisan, I think, has been one of the biggest sticking points for so many non-government agencies for so long. And if we can somehow, even through your organisation, learn from you ways in which we can convince our members, politicians can't change what they don't know needs changing. And until we tell them what we need. Thank you. Would you care?
That broke up for me a little bit.
Would you care to comment about how else we can actually be speaking to politicians and talking about the need for there to be not only pricing of carbon, but for us to be saying the things that need to be changed so that we can get some action?
I think one of the main things is to have this respectful, ongoing relationship with your MP. And now that can be really hard, especially in a place like Bunbury. And I know the MP there, and it's very similar to my MP. We'll never really change their minds on this kind of thing. So in areas like that, it's hard, but the squeaky door does get the oil. So if we can encourage more people to go and speak to someone like Nola Marino about this, they would have to, in the end, take note of it. And even, you know, sometimes it's not just the MPs, but it's their chief of staff or their diary manager or their advisor who's sitting there next to them taking notes. We've often found that those people are almost as important as the MPs, because they sometimes, you know, they move around and they go and work for other MPs, and sometimes they become MPs themselves. And this is a slow burn, you know. The trouble about it being a slow burn is that time is running out. So that's the kind of like the candles burning at both ends kind of thing. You know, it's really hard. We have to get more people speaking. Yeah. And if we go in there too antagonistic, we don't get any of our points across at all. So that's why I like the CCL way, because it really encourages us to find that common ground. And there was a great example. Sorry, am I taking too much time, Carol? Just one more story.
That's fine, go.
Where a young girl was in one of our groups going to speak to a politician here in South Perth. And when she first went into this thing, she was dead against this man. And you know, with some reason, he'd been there a long time. He was kind of pretty, not doing too much, especially in the climate space. But she did. One of the things we have to do is get a biography on the MP, and that was her task, to go and do a biography. And so she learned a lot more about him, and she learned that he had a pretty tough upbringing, that he had done a lot of work with you know, disadvantaged people in our community, and so her views just through doing that biography changed. And so when she went into that meeting, she was a lot more. She was kind of, you know, she didn't have the barriers up, I suppose. She was more willing to listen to his point of view. And I just think that the whole CCL ethos is all about trying to meet people where they are. Yeah. And I think that's important when we've got such a divisive topic talking about.
Yeah. Oh dear. Now that's brilliant. Very good advice. And I love the idea of getting a biography of the MP. That's learn to see them as people, and it's a great opening for a conversation. That's brilliant. I'm sure we shall be in touch more, Joyce, and I think that members, you have groups in most states, don't you, Joyce?
Every single electorate, we would love to have a group in every single electorate, all 151, but we tried that and it's too hard and we can't do it. So we've kind of shrunk right back now to a kind of small group targeting 30 to 40 MPs. But having said that, if you are interested in speaking to your MP, we are very, very happy to kind of support you through that process. And we've got strong groups in New South Wales and strong in WA. Elsewhere, not quite so much, but we would love to have more.
But I'm sure that between you, you'd probably have someone that could help online if someone wants to have some advice from someone in the group before going to meet an MP. And I think that for us, that's great to know that that opportunity exists, which is super.
Yeah, we'd love to have you help us with this.
Yeah, no, that would be great. Well, thank you so much, Joyce. There's no other questions, are there? Just double check, nothing there. Good, that's good. So thank you again for your time today, both to Joyce and to Amanda. We've learned so much from you both, and I'm sure that we can have some good ongoing dialogue with the pair of you to help further our cause about gender equal climate action.